Hi everyone, my name is Ben. I'm a recovering debtor. Really lovely to be here. A real honour to be asked, actually, as it always is when doing a chair of any kind. It's interesting. I to talk about step 4. I kind of got the 12 and 12 out and just started having a read again, and just those strong words made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. I don't think I'd ever asked. I did the how program steps, and so the step 4 is the 155 questions, and searching is definitely the word in that, because you go into this process of discovery, and it's also a complete, for me it was a complete ego breakdown. It was a chance to kind of unveil things that I didn't even scratch at in sort of 10 years of therapy beforehand. And I think it was so important for me as well with the How program to work from the beginning and move, go from historic family generational trauma patterns through my own childhood into my teenage years, and then how I've behaved as an adult with money and what my relationship with money is moving forward and through into my recovery. And it was really such a game changer for me. And obviously everyone was kind of going, beware step 4, he cometh, and that it was round the corner and it would be this incredible struggle. And it took me a long time. And there were days when I read the question and I just thought, you've got to be kidding me. I'm not in the right headspace to be able to go into that. But with the help of my sponsor, and outreach, just to keep pushing ahead with it and keep searching, and every single question seemed to just dip deeper for me into the issues, unveiling the patterns. The patterns were the crazy things, and being asked different questions about different parts of your life, but seeing this correlation through those sections of your life, and this kind of constant callback to patterns. Mine were very much always coming from a place of lack, basically being kind of brought into the world by two parents who themselves, even as adults, are kind of childlike in a lot of their emotions, and not really having that kind of background emotionally to kind of know where the parameters were that I was working with. And obviously then moving into using money as an adult, and as we all know, a lot of our stuff gets played out in that, and my self-esteem around earning, and just my general relationship with money. It was childlike. It wasn't, and I didn't quite get it really until step 4. The first 3 steps really helped me kind of accept and release, and then with 4 it was like, right, okay, now it's time to, I always liken it to kind of, we've opened the attic door, but step 4 is the kind of switch the light on and let's start opening boxes and going through them. And in that kind of sorting, you have to make a mess. It is a bit of a mess, and you're forced to sit with it. And sometimes sponsees call me in the middle of step 4, and I can hear that thing in them that I felt, where it's like, I just got all this stuff around me that is slightly overwhelming, but again, we're not alone doing this. The idea of doing that step 4 without be able to call my sponsor when it was sticky, or without outreaching, I wouldn't have finished it. And I think just the kind of wading through it, as it sometimes feels, is so important to do, and so important to get the right support as you're doing that. I just want to read a couple of things from the 12 and 12 to sort of spark off. When we were debting, we were immersed in our disease. Once we found Debtors Anonymous, we realised that we needed to be immersed in the recovery process. This did not mean attending meetings 24 hours a day. It meant integrating recovery practices and principles into our daily lives. What
That's
amazed
5
me,
minutes.
thank you. What amazed me about this integration of practicing stuff is that with the tools of DA and BDA as well, because I run my own business, the tools of DA help me from a daily perspective to get through that day without debting, without under earning. Without those tools, it wouldn't, that again just wouldn't have happened. I needed something to help me sort of see, you know, I love a process. I'm a bit of a nerd with processes. So my nerd self had to kind of, rather than thinking about restriction and what money I wasn't going to spend, I had to kind of look at the flow and the ins and outs of that. And the tools really helped that. And the visioning really helped me do that. Let me flip step 4. In Debtors Anonymous, we learned a great deal about replacing vagueness with clarity. When we lived in vagueness and self-delusion, we could not see our way out of compulsive debting. Yeah, I mean, step 4 was, again, that light on moment. It's like, okay, it's time. And I think, you know, when you start, it's a bit of a mountain because you're coming from a rock bottom. It's often why most of us come in. You know, there's a position of anxiety and pressure, and the mountain seems so high to climb, and yet the vagueness and self-delusion is still there. And by the time you've in step 4, you've kind of cleared the space and taken enough oxygen to be able to sort of go underwater and start looking at that vagueness and self-delusion. When we became clear and honest with ourselves, we were no longer stuck. This was the kind of honesty about ourselves that was required of us in step 4, and the necessity for honesty was one of the reasons the sponsor's guidance was so important. Yeah, you know, being honest about it, I couldn't be honest until I knew what was under the bonnet. You know, I didn't know what the engine was doing. And then in answering the questions and doing the forensic investigation, I could find out a bit more about where I had been dishonest. And mostly it was with myself. You know, it was just this blatant kind of trundling through life between feast and famine, and the famine was so dramatic always, and then the feast was so incredible and dramatic and full of elation, but never calm. You know, I was never calm. I was just swinging wildly from one to the other, and you know, finding myself in lump sum situations where the lump sum was used to just rid me of anxiety in the short term, and the long term suffered because of that. And step 4, looking back, made me really see where those big moments were in my debting and under earning, and what
That's 8
happened.
minutes.
Thank you. And what happened with those lump sums of money actually allowed me to see very clearly what my patterns were. You know, kind of great, been paid, pay off the debts, go on holiday, forget about everything for 2 weeks, sit in the sunshine, get home, can't pay the mortgage, back on the wheel, can't pay the mortgage, have to debt to try and keep the money flowing in, it's not happening. You know, and seeing those patterns and dropping my ego, because I just thought I did it the right way. I did it the right way, and that if you're doing it the right way, of course it's going to be hideously painful and you're going to spend most of your days in anxiety about it. Until I got to this fellowship, and then suddenly it's like, I don't have to feel like that every day. I can crack away at this and start to become more of an adult around money, and again, seeing myself kind of mature, especially in business. Like, who I send out to go and do business used to be the scared child. The scared child would go and do those meetings, and the scared child would feel you know, anxious and scared and in pain if there was rejection. And now the adult goes and has those conversations. The adult will go and interact about money. The adult puts the heads of agreement down in an email and sends them to people to, you know, to clarify in writing what's been agreed. you know, the adult invoices promptly and pays bills promptly. But before, it was just this child sat in a room playing money. So I think, yeah, step four, just to kind of tie it up, step four was so incredibly important for me to really get my feet under the table of this fellowship and really see where my patterns were putting me in the middle of my recovery. Thank you so much for having me.